Hi, how are you? I'm Mr. Muso. Today we want to talk about the Anglo Ndebele War of 1893-94. The war between the British and the Ndebele. That is why it was called Anglo. Anglo, it refers to Britain, the British people. But these British people, they were represented by the British South African Company. Cecil John Rhodes, the man who was behind the occupation of Zimbabwe, he was granted a charter in 1889. And when he was granted this charter, he had to form a company which was supposed to undertake the colonization of Zimbabwe. This company was known as the British South African Company. So it was a war between the BSAC, the British South African Company, this company representing Britain, and the local people, the Ndebele. This war was fought in 1893. So we want to look on the causes that led to this war between the Ndebele and also the British, represented by the British South African Company. Let's look on the causes, the factors that led to the Anglo Ndebele War of 1893. Number one, let's talk about Jamesons' character. Star Leander Jameson. Star Leander Jameson, he was the vice president of the BSAC. The president of the BSAC was known as Cecil John Rhodes. Cecil Johnson Rhodes. His vice president was known as Star Leander Jameson. So Star Leander Jameson, he was the man behind the Anglo Ndebele War of 1893. So what took place here is that Star Leander Jameson anticipated that they were going to find a lot of minerals in Zimbabwe, but they were frustrated because they could not find these minerals in Zimbabwe. So because of that now, he started to hate the Ndebele people. He hated the Ndebele people whom he regarded as destructive, whom he regarded as warmongers. So as a result of that now, he wanted their kingdom to be destroyed. Why? It is because the BSAC could not find enough minerals in Zimbabwe. So that frustration on its own now, as the leader of the BSAC, it led him to hate the Ndebele. He started to hate them. He started to think that these people were miserable. Something was supposed to be done so that these people could be destroyed. What is it that was supposed to be done? It was supposed to, they were supposed to wage a war against the Ndebele so that the Ndebele could eventually be defeated. So we are saying that the character of Star Leander Jameson, the vice president of the BSAC, led to the Anglo Ndebele War of 1893. We are also going to see what he did in 1893 on the Victoria incident. He was the man who had to make this war okay. Why? It is because of his actions that he had to attack in 1893. We'll talk about that later on. So our first cause is the character of Star Leander Jameson, leading to the Anglo Ndebele War of 1893. Number two, the issue of minerals. The issue of minerals led to the Anglo Ndebele War of 1893. Why do we say so? It is because Britain, represented by Cecil John Rhodes, they thought that Zimbabwe was minerally rich. They thought that they were going to find the second rand in Zimbabwe. They thought that they were going to find the El Dorado. El Dorado, we are talking about minerals. They thought that Zimbabwe was minerally rich. Just stepping in, coming in Zimbabwe, arriving in Zimbabwe, they were going to be exposed to so many many minerals. They were going to have so many minerals in our country as Zimbabwe. So we see that when they arrived now, they could not find these minerals in Zimbabwe. They arrived in 1890. In 1890, in September, they could not find these minerals. 91, no minerals. 92, no minerals. 93, boo, BP was already up. Why? It is because they could not find enough minerals in Zimbabwe. So because of that now, they started to seek for ways in which they were going to attack the Ndebele. They started to look for ways in which they were going to fight the Ndebele. Fighting the Ndebele now, it meant that the Ndebele were going to be defeated. And if they were defeated now, they were now going to occupy Lobengula's kingdom, because they started to think that Lobengula's area, Matebele land, was minerally rich, and by going to Matebele land, they were going to find these minerals in abundance. But unfortunately, they could not find these minerals. So that on its own, it brought anger, it brought frustrations, because when they left South Africa in 1890, they were promised 15 gold claims upon arrival in Zimbabwe. But when they arrived in Zimbabwe, no goride, there was no gold at all, bringing frustrations, bringing anger. That on its own now leading them to attack the Ndebele. Attacking the Ndebele, it sparked the Anglo Ndebele War of 1893. So we are saying that the issue of the El Dorado, the second round, led to the Anglo Ndebele War of 1893. Let's move on and talk about another cause, which is shifting of attention from Mashonaland to Matebeleland. When the whites came, they came via Mashonaland. Remember, they arrived in Bedbridge. They named it Fort Tuli. A fort is a protected settlement. They moved to Mashingo. They named it Fort Victoria in honor of the British Queen Victoria, who had granted Cecil John Rhodes a charter. They moved to Chivu. They named it a Fort Charter. Why Fort Charter? It is after the charter that was granted to Cecil John Rhodes. They moved to Harare, and when they arrived in Harare on 12 September, they raised their flag, they raised their Union Jack, and they started to sing their national anthem, yo, 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 marking the beginning for the colonization of Zimbabwe. So when they came, they were in Mashonaland. So here now, what are we saying? They now wanted to move to Matebeleland. But going to Matebeleland, they were going to inevitably clash with the Ndebele. Why? Because the Ndebele were not going to tolerate the whites invading their areas. They were not going to tolerate the settlers coming to their kingdom. So because of that now, we are saying that the shifting, moving from Mashonaland to Matebeleland inevitably led to the War of 1893. So the Anglo Ndebele War of 1893 was led by the whites who wanted to move to Matebeleland, who wanted now to leave Mashonaland and go to Matebeleland, creating the so-called the Anglo Ndebele War. Another factor that led to the Anglo Ndebele War was the issue of boundaries. The whites created boundaries. They set up boundaries. They drew up boundaries which were not supposed to be violated by the Ndebele people. Why did they set up these boundaries? It is because the Ndebele, they used to come to Mashonaland to raid the Shona people. They used to come to Mashonaland to collect tribute from the Shona people. But the Shona were now taking advantage of this. Whenever the Ndebele came to raid, whenever the Ndebele came to collect tribute, the Shona people fled to the mountains. And that disturbed the activities of the whites. The whites were now employing Shonas at their farms and mines. So whenever the Ndebele came, they Shona people deserted their workplaces and they fled to the mountains, and that disturbed the activities, the work that was being performed by these Africans, by these Shona people at the farms and mines of the whites. So the whites were frustrated by this. So in order to avoid further disturbances, they had to draw up boundaries. They had to set up boundaries which were not supposed to be violated by the Ndebele people. When they set up these boundaries, Lobengula did not do anything to the whites. Why? He wanted to avoid clashes between him and the whites. He knew that the whites had maximum guns and the Ndebele did not have. In the event of a war taking place, the Ndebele were going to be defeated. Why being defeated? Because the whites had maximum guns. They had superior weapons, unlike his people, the Ndebele, who did not have superior weapons. So as a result of that, now he tried by all means to avoid clashes between him and the whites. So we are saying that in 1893, Lobengula was angered by what two Shona chiefdoms did to him. One of them, you misused his animals. Another one stole his cattle. So because of that now, he had to cross and he had to go to Mashonaland. Going to Mashonaland, it led him to clash with the whites, leading to the Anglo Ndebele War. So we are saying that the Anglo Ndebele War, it was caused by the boundary issue. Lobengula moving to Mashonaland, moving to punish the Shona chiefdoms who had violated his laws. So by so doing, it eventually contributed to the Anglo Ndebele War of 1893. Let's talk about the immediate cause, which was known as the Victoria incident. Victoria was now a new name that was given to Mashingo. Mashingo was known as Mashingo, but now the whites, when they arrived in Mashingo, they had to rename it to Fort Victoria. Why Fort Victoria? In honor of the British Queen, we had granted Cecil John Rhodes a charter. So when they had to name it Fort Victoria, we see that now the whites were now in total control of whatever was taking place in Mashingo, Fort Victoria. On this day, we see that Chief Gomara, one of the Shona chiefdoms in Mashingo, he cut and carried away our telegram. He had to cut and carry away our telegraphic wires. He had to cut these telegraphic wires in order to make snares. The whites were now phoning in Salisbury, hello. The number that you have dialed is not reachable. Please try later. Hello. The number that you have dialed is not reachable. Please try later. What was taking place? It is because Chief Gomara, he had to instruct his boys, go and cut the telegraphic wire. 500 yards of telegraphic wire. He had to cut those telegraphic wires to make snares. When he did that now, the whites were frustrated and they had to summon Gomara, and he was ordered to pay a fine, and he had to pay a fine using Lobengula's cattle. He had been given animals by Lobengula. He had been given cattle by Lobengula to use under the system which was called Kuronzera Ukusisa Ukulagisa. It's a system whereby you are given animals to use, and we are supposed to use these animals for any form of labor. But now, if you want to kill or if you want to do anything to that animal, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to return them. My daughter Nyasha, how are you? Thank you so much for joining in. Dorothy, thank you so much for tuning in. So by so doing now, Lobengula was angered because he had given Gomara these animals to use, not to slaughter them or to use them in any way that he was supposed to use them. He was supposed to seek permission from Lobengula. So by so doing now, Lobengula was angered, but he did not do anything when this took place. But now, a week After Gomara, he had cut and carried 500 yards of telegraphic wire and used these animals to pay as fine. Another Shona chiefdom, Bere, stole Lobengola's cattle. This angered Lobengola. Gomara took my animals, he had to pay his crime using my animals. He has stolen my animals. These Shona chiefdoms, they are no longer respecting me. They are now disrespectful. Let me punish them. Let me show them that I am Lobengola. So we see Lobengola dispatching an army led by Mugandani and Manyao. The army was supposed to go and punish these Shona chiefdoms. But it is said that before they left for Mashingo, Lobengola, he wrote a letter to Captain Lendi informing him about the task that the Ndebele were going to take in Mashingo. Unfortunately, this letter arrived late. In Mashingo, the Ndebele started to burn houses. They started to beat people. And one of the Shona chiefdoms, known as Zimuto, he was caught in the crossfire, and we see that his people were also affected. But the army was specifically sent to go and punish Bere and Gomara. When these things were taking place now, when these problems were taking place now, Captain Lendi, the chief magistrate of Mashingo, he had to phone Jameson, Star Lienda Jameson, who was in Salisbury. So when he phoned him now, he had to inform him about the disturbances that were taking place in Mashingo. Oh, Jameson, here in Mashingo, there are problems. The Ndebeles are beating people. The Ndebeles are robbing people. Please do something, because the situation in Mashingo is unbearable. When Jameson heard about that, he was so much excited. You remember we talked about the character of Jameson leading to the Anglo Ndebele War. He was looking for this opportunity to attack, to defeat the Ndebeles once and for all. He rushed to Mashingo, and when he arrived in Mashingo, he held a meeting with the Ndebele leaders. And it is said that this meeting only lasted for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, he told the Ndebele, move away, go back to Matebeleland. So as they were going, the Ndebele, we see that the group that was behind, led by Mugandan, they were shot, poof, boo, and they died. When the other group arrived in Matebeleland, they informed Lobengula about what took place in Mashingo. Lobengula was angered. So we see the whites now preparing for the war. And on the other side, the Ndebele now preparing for the war. But the whites were preparing for the war to destroy the Ndebele once and for all. On the other side, the Ndebele were also preparing for this war so that they could protect themselves in the event of being attacked by the whites. So that is what took place on the Victoria incident. So the Victoria incident, it was the immediate cause that led to the Anglo Ndebele War of 1893. Let's move on and talk about the war. The war started in 1893, and when it started now, the whites had to recruit more people so that they could assist them to fight the Ndebele. The whites were only 200. It meant that in the event of fighting with the Ndebele, when they were 200, they were going to be defeated. So we see Cecil John Rhodes recruiting a volunteer force that was supposed to fight the whites. When the volunteer force was recruited, we see that it came and it had to assist the BSAC to fight the Ndebele. The Ndebele, we see that they were defeated in this war. They inferior weapons, they used spears, they used shields. On the other side, the whites were using guns, they were using cannons, they had better communication methods. The whites were using horses. So by so doing, so many Ndebeles died in this war. So many Ndebeles were killed in this war. Alan Wilson spearheading the defeat, the demise of the Ndebele. Lobengula, sensing that things were not well here, he bent his kingdom and he fled. When he fled, the whites eventually arrived at Lobengula's area, and they took about 2,500 heads of cattle. They had to share those animals among themselves as rations. And when Lobengula fled, it also marked the end of the Ndebele state under Lobengula. The whites now had to claim, to pronounce victory after Lord Bengula deserted his area. So by so doing now, we see the whites in total control of now Matabeleland. They had taken over Mashonaland and they now took over Matabeleland. It meant that they were now in total control of what was taking place both in Mashonaland and in Matabeleland. So that is what we have on this interesting topic, the Anglo Ndebele War. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Mr. Muso.